All right. Good morning. Hi. Welcome to Renew's 12th Annual Summit. It's so glad to be here with all of you. My name is Amy Siebold-Wilson, and I've had the honor this past fall of becoming the board president of Renew Wisconsin, and I'm here to kick off the event this morning. We have a few quick reminders for everybody. The first one, are you flipping the slides? Okay, there we go. Thank you, everybody. We're all seated. Great. So the first reminder is that this year your event schedule is all on your phone on the Huba app. So hopefully you all been able to figure that out. If you have any questions, please ask the Renew staff at their table out back. We're trying to cut back on paper waste, so thank you for adopting that technology. Another reminder is one of the ways Renew is able to thrive and offer this event is through our memberships. So if you're not a member of Renew yet, we strongly ask that you consider joining us, and there's a membership table out back. You can stop by and sign up at any point today. I want to thank the Renew board. This has been an amazing group of people to work with. The folks up on this screen here help keep things going orderly and help us advance our ideas constantly, which has been a really fun learning opportunity for me. And even more importantly, I want to thank the staff. It's been a very busy time for renewable energy, as most of you know. And on top of a lot of the industry change, we've also had some staff turnover this year. And this crew has many new faces now that you might see. So stop by, welcome them, introduce yourself, and thank them for helping us get through a period of time with a lot of change. And hopefully we're on to smooth sailing now. And last but not least, I want to introduce Sam. He is also a Renew staff. So Sam is going to come up and join me in a second. He is our new executive director, Sam Deniski. He joined Renew as the executive director in November of this year. And he comes to us, he's been with Renew for quite a while, so hopefully he's a familiar face to many of you. He joined Renew as a volunteer first in 2017. Then in 2018, he became the program manager. And before that, he actually has a background in meteorology. So he did weather forecasting for the Midwest and East Coast and has a bachelor's of science degree from UW-Madison. So I want to extend my thanks to Sam for taking on this position of leadership with Renew this year. It's been really great to work with him and get to know him. Sam.
Thanks, Amy. We have an amazing lineup of programming today. Thank you all for being here. And this great programming and this great event would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. So I just want to thank all of you, all the sponsors right now. So our presenting sponsors are Green Penny and Invenergy. Our partner sponsors, Arch Solar, Eagle Point Solar, EDF Renewables, and Leeward Renewable Energy. And we're going to tag team this so I can save my voice throughout the day.
And leadership sponsors include Alliant Energy, American Transmission Company, Endre Solar, Everlight Solar, Generac, Green Tech Renewables, Keys and Fox, Michael Best, and the Wisconsin Office of Energy Innovation, One Energy Renewables, Savion, and Stantec.
Our champion sponsors, Apex Clean Energy, Chevron Renewable Energy Group, the Couleecap Solar Foundation, NTech Solutions, Foley and Lardner, Good Steward Consulting, Madison College, Midwest Heating and Cooling, Midwest Renewable Energy Association, Northwind Solar, REC Solar, Bolt, Train, and Werner Electric.
And advocate sponsors are Aurora Solar, Avid Risk Solutions, Carlson Electric, Clean Wisconsin, Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change, Energize, EOR, Focus on Energy, Full Spectrum Solar, Ingiteam, JCG Land Services, Midwest Solar Power, Mosaic, MuGrid and Analytics, Pinebach, Ranger Power, Rupert Milkheat, Steiger Vaults, Sun Peak, TRC Companies, Westfall and Company, Wisconsin Keep, WIDRC, the Wisconsin Conservative Energy Forum, and Excel Energy.
And our supporter sponsors, All Energy Solar, the City of Madison, Convergence Energy, UW Energy Analysis and Policy Program, the Environmental Law and Policy Center, Legacy Solar Co-op, Mashuda Contractors, McKinstry, Milwaukee Jewish Free Loan Association, Northeast Technical College, PRC Wind, RWE, Samsung America, Slipstream, Wisconsin Solar Share Wisconsin Co-op, Sustain Dane, Plumbers and Steamfitters Local 400, USDA Rural Development, Wisconsin Environmental Initiative, West Engineering, Westwood, the Wisconsin Energy Institute, and the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. Could we please have a round of applause for our sponsors? Thank you all again for being here. This is a very exciting time to be with Renew. We have done a lot of work over the past year. We're going to be doing a lot more in the coming years as well. If you want a little bit more insight into what we have been working on, please check out our annual report, which can be found at our booth just outside here on the promenade. One main thing I should say that we have been working on a lot this year is our Wisconsin Roadmap to Net Zero by 2050. This is a partnership that we had with several organizations, including Clean Wisconsin and several other partners as well. A lot of the breakout sessions today are actually going to focus on this roadmap and on this study, so I definitely encourage you to check that out as well. There's a lot of information in there for all of you information and statistics junkies out there. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce Green Penny Bank. Is Jason here? Jason, come on up. Jason McDuff is the president of Green Penny Bank. Jason joined Green Penny 2 years ago after taking a break from a career to travel. It was in Antarctica and South America, Patagonia, Amazon, and the Galapagos Islands, where he gained insight from environmental scientists and researchers on the effects of climate change. It was clear then, as it is now, the world needs real solutions to reduce and recapture carbon from the atmosphere now. And Jason came home committed to putting his financial services experience to use. Jason and Green Penny believe in the importance of using your money as your voice for fiscal and environmental advocacy. And he'll talk briefly about how they're working to help us do this in Wisconsin. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jason McDuff.
Good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you to Renew, to Sam, to the entire team. We've really enjoyed working with you all and look forward to continuing that work. Thanks for putting on this conference. It's a lot of work, but more importantly, thanks for all you're doing for renewable energy in the state. As Sam mentioned, I joined the company a couple of years ago, and actually this event has become somewhat special for us at Green Penny because it was 2 years ago at a virtual version of this event, because it was in the middle of COVID in 2021, you may remember, that we launched Green Penny after a lot of work to build a team and build a website at greenpenny.bank, a call team at 888-GPenny0, build products and figure out how to tell our story, and hopefully come to market with all of you and have something that you all think is valuable in the renewable energy space. And we're very proud of the progress that we've made since then. In the last 2 years, we have financed now well over 1,000 renewable energy projects across our 5 states. It's mostly solar. So we're, of course, in Wisconsin. We're also in Iowa. We're also in Minnesota, in Illinois, and in Missouri. And of those well over 1,000, 310 of them are in this state. And in fact, if you stop by our booth out on the mezzanine, the Green Penny booth is right in the middle, and there is a map of the state, and you can see where all of those projects are located. And we're also very proud of the fact that they're pretty well all over the state, from the very top of it to the very bottom of it. And you can also look at The carbon equivalence of that, it's 160 some odd thousand trees planted. It's 8.5 million miles driven by internal combustion vehicles. It's nearly 4 megawatts worth of solar. The vast majority in Wisconsin is residential, but we also do agricultural, commercial, nonprofit. And we have another, on top of the 310 projects that we've done the last couple of years, we have another 76 in the pipeline right now. So we're very excited about what's happening in Wisconsin, and we'd like to do a lot more. If you don't know what Green Penny is, as our name suggests, we are a bank. We're from Decorah, Iowa. How many of you know where Decorah, Iowa is? Raise your hands. Hey! That's a lot of you. Hey, good. So I ask that every year, and it seems like more and more people are raising their hands, so that's good. Decorah actually has one of the highest solar adoption rates of any community in the country. And in fact, Alliant Energy, who's our utility provider, had to install a battery storage facility to absorb all the excess renewable power that's being generated in our community. And our bank, Decorah Bank and Trust, which is the community bank that powers Green Penny, financed a lot of that. So the bank has been around since 1960. We have pretty well dominant share in our local geography, and like lots of community banks, we were looking for ways to grow beyond our local communities. And so we thought, well, we're pretty good at renewable energy lending. Why not do this in more communities across the Midwest? So we launched greenpenny.bank. We're a little bit unique, though. We don't have branches. We are virtual. And as I mentioned, greenpenny.bank or 888-GPenny0. We answer the phones live Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 Central Time. And our value proposition is this. All of the deposits that we gather on greenpenny.bank are only used for renewable energy or carbon-reducing projects. So when Sam says we believe very passionately that folks should use their money as their voice, that's what we believe, that your harder deposits, you should know where those are being lent. And do you want those to go towards the fossil fuel industry, like many banks do, or do you want them to go towards what we're doing in the state of Wisconsin, those 310 projects that we've installed in the last couple of years? Our pledge is all of those deposits will only go to renewable energy or carbon-reducing projects. And we're going to pay you a pretty good rate. In fact, on February 1st, we are launching a CD special that only has a $500 minimum, and that CD special rate is 4.4%. That's a pretty good rate, and again, only going to be used for renewable energy projects. And our savings account is going up to 2.5% on a savings account that has no minimum. So please, go to greenpenny.bank, open an account online. The more deposits we have, the more we can do in the state and in Midwestern communities outside of Wisconsin as well. So we've got a booth out there. Our team is over here. Thank you so much to Renew Wisconsin. Thanks for having us, everybody. Have a great conference.
Thank you, Jason. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce a man who really doesn't need an introduction, Michael Bickerman. Michael has been with Renew for over 30 years. Under Michael's leadership, Renew helped garner political support to formulate and standardize a statewide 10% renewable energy portfolio. He worked to create uniform wind energy siting and permitting standards, and he also strengthened distributed renewable energy incentives under the Focus on Energy program. To say he's been a champion for renewable energy in Wisconsin would be a huge understatement. And not only has he been a great champion for renewable energy, but he's also been a great mentor to Renew and to myself especially. So I just want to thank Michael for all of his help. I visit Michael's office about 4 to 5 times per day. So it is my great pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend, Michael Bickerman.
Thank you for that very kind introduction. Yeah, all right, we're all set up. Okay. So welcome, everyone. It is time, once again, for our annual rapid-fire forced march review of last year's accomplishments and trends. 2022 was certainly an event-filled year, and we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's dive in. The quantity of solar megawatts commissioned last year, 295 megawatts, came in slightly lower than the 2021 total, which was about 325 megawatts, for reasons we'll get into later. But last year, we recorded a huge spike in construction starts and are now just shy of 1,400 megawatts. The pipeline of projects continues to grow. As you can see, The first three projects in Alliance Clean Energy Blueprint, Wood County, Bear Creek, and North Rock, accounted for more than 80% of the solar capacity that came online in 2022. Consistent with previous years, customers cited behind-the-meter solar power accounted for about 25 megawatts total. So speaking of Bear Creek, let's take a closer look at Alliant Energy's solar build-out and focus on that utility's approach to decarbonizing its generation fleet and how that is affecting host communities and the state's workforce. Most of the solar farm construction activity happening around the state today is being driven by Alliant Energy's Clean Energy Blueprint. And thus far, the utility has completed 3 of its dozen projects, totaling 250 megawatts, and expects to complete the remaining 839 megawatts by this time next year. A few things to note here. 8 of the 12 projects are less than 100 megawatts in size, meaning that Alliant Energy developed those projects internally and shepherded them themselves through the local government permitting process. This approach is unique among Wisconsin utilities, and it is clearly delivering results. This map shows that these 12 projects span the length and width of Alliance service territory from Cassville to Oostburg, from Albany to Nakusa. In their first full year of operation and each year thereafter, these projects will deliver $4.36 million in revenues to local governments hosting these facilities. Thanks to Alliant's partnership with its EPC contractor, most of the 2,000-plus construction jobs associated with these 12 projects will go to skilled laborers sourced from local union halls. Madison-based Westfall & Company, pictured here, participated in the installation of approximately 120,000 panels at Bear Creek, the first Alliant solar farm to be energized. So this slide shows that the 1,400 megawatt number that I referenced earlier constitutes only about 1/3 of the solar wave washing through Wisconsin today. It's just, without doubt, there is a great deal of forward momentum in the large-scale solar arena right now. Okay. The Public Service Commission will decide the fate of these projects between now and August. The application's been filed and they're going through the hearing process. 5 of these 6 projects listed here, notably, have a battery energy storage component. This February, the PSC will rule on Portage Solar, a proposed 250-megawatt solar farm near Plover. The solar arrays will be paired with a large battery storage facility, and National Grid Renewables is the developer. Then in March, the PSC will take up Saratoga Solar, a 150-megawatt proposal in Wood County. The project developer is Savion Energy, which developed the Wood County solar farm right next door. Saratoga Solar and Portage Solar are about 25 miles apart from each other. There has certainly been a significant uptick in the pairing of solar and battery energy storage. Late last year, Alliant Energy reopened the solar docket to backfill battery storage systems into their Wood County and Grant County solar farms. This is an outgrowth of anticipated changes to the way generation capacity will be accredited in the MISO region. The next set of transmission projects to be constructed in the MISO region were unveiled last year as part of an extended planning process. Estimated to cost a little more than $10 billion, the Tranche 1 transmission lines, including the ones that are pictured here in Wisconsin, could support, as a group, about 53 gigawatts of solar, wind, hybrid, and standalone battery projects across the region. And for more than that, I encourage you to check out the Smart Generation Siting session this afternoon at 1:30. After a supply chain delay, the Red Barn Wind Farm in Grant County is nearly complete and will be energized sometime this quarter. When completed, this 28-turbine, 92-megawatt project will produce power for WPS and MGE customers. It will be the first new project in Wisconsin in 5 years. On the renewable natural gas front, Wisconsin's largest commercial biorefinery is now operating. Designed by Dynamic Renewables, a Menasha company, this facility accepts dairy manure from 11 nearby farms and converts it to multiple products, including pipeline-grade renewable natural gas. Now, onward to the regulatory arena. So, in terms of PSC dockets affecting clean energy deployment, 2022 clocked in as the busiest year ever for our policy team. Notably, the PSC addressed several important policy questions that had either been deferred or shelved in the previous decade. Also, the pace of construction and acquisition dockets picked up. Overall, it was a mixed set of results for the Renew policy team, but we did score a number of favorable rulings in the rate cases, which will advance the solar marketplace, especially in the residential sector. Clearly, the PSC's ruling, though, to affirm Vote Solar's third-party financing petition represents a significant advance on the policy front. But there is still a lot of territory to traverse, such as completing the docket to revise PSC 119, which is the state's interconnection standard, that chapter. This is very much a priority for solar contractors and battery equipment manufacturers. Like last year, distributed generation policy will receive a lot of attention this year. And for more on that, check out Getting Around the Meter, a breakout session this morning at 10:45. In 2022, a project team consisting of Renew, Clean Wisconsin, and Grid Lab commissioned a technical document that provides modeling, analysis, and reporting for a Wisconsin zero carbon study. The team recently released the summary report containing results as well as policy recommendations. The bar chart on the left illustrates the capacity expansion needed to meet a 100% zero carbon grid-wide standard by 2050. The pie chart on the right provides a snapshot of the clean generation portfolio that would serve Wisconsin under a 2050 net zero economy-wide scenario. Developing clean energy resources at this scale would require significant expansion of regional transmission infrastructure. And I would encourage you to check out, if you're interested in this, the Wisconsin Roadmap to Net Zero this afternoon. All right, now it's time to move out from our relatively quiet corner of the cosmos to take stock of the macro-scale forces that are influencing the environment for clean energy deployment across the country. So 2022 was a year in which the push-pull forces of the global economy and federal energy policy intensified greatly. For much of the year, the solar industry persevered through stiff headwinds that slowed construction activity here and elsewhere. But the disappointing start to the year was tempered by a massive bright spot that emerged from Washington last summer, the Inflation Reduction Act. Supplies of solar panels from Southeast Asia dried up last year after the Commerce Department launched an investigation into illegal trade practices. Thankfully, though the immediate threat of punitive tariffs was put on hold, we're not out of the woods quite yet. These disruptions forced a couple of force majeure events affecting power plant construction in Wisconsin. Two solar projects totaling 350 megawatts were temporarily sidelined, along with the Red Barn Wind project. After that supply chain hiccup, though, those projects are now moving steadily towards the finish line. So that headline you see there, clean energy industry poised to capitalize on IRA passage, but lingering policy issues lead to slowest quarter growth in 3 years. Pretty much sums up the state of the clean energy industry as the year came to a close. And as the U.S. economy rebounded from the COVID-19 pandemic, demand for electricity rose in 2022, driving increases in consumptions of not only renewables but also natural gas. As a result, carbon emissions from power plants also ticked up last year. So against this backdrop of rising emissions, along comes the Inflation Reduction Act. This landmark law creates a 10-year policy platform aimed at driving substantial growth in clean energy generation, U.S. manufacturing, domestic supply chain development, and equity-based deployment strategies. Pretty ambitious. And this was nice. This past September, Governor Tony Evers invited Renew to take part in the signing-in ceremonies at the White House. a definite highlight for our organization. Here, Renew board member Jessica Necross and Emerging Technologies Manager Francisco Sayu share a moment in the sun with Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. In 2022, Renew, in partnership with developers and solar contractors, helped launch SolarShare Wisconsin. This new cooperative provides citizens and businesses with a platform for investing in community-scale solar energy projects. This initiative got off the ground with the help of a $265,000 grant from Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Since its formation, SolarShare Cooperative hired an executive director, Corey Neely, who's here today, and is moving forward with 2 community-scale solar farms in Juneau County, totaling 4.5 megawatts. We're now transitioned from the front-of-the-meter portion of the DG space to behind the meters, serving individual customers, emphasizing specific initiatives that target various slices of the solar acquiring public. So here we move on to solar group purchase programs, and the purpose of them is to increase household solar uptake. Grow Solar Wisconsin, operated by Midwest Renewable Energy Association, launched a new initiative in 2022 called Grow Solar for Humanity. Through this program, rooftop solar is integrated into new Habitat for Humanity homes marketed to income-eligible households. Most of the solarized Habitat homes will be located or are located in Milwaukee. The average household that moves into one of these homes is expected to save more than $1,000 a year on electric bills. Now, moving to Madison. Now in its 8th year, the Madison program, which Renew operates in partnership with the City of Madison, continues to grow and branch out to support the community. Madison's Backyard Solar program provides targeted incentives to nonprofit organizations and affordable housing providers. Grants cover up to 20% of the cost of a new solar array, lowering the cost of the initial outlay for these entities. And over its 8-year lifetime, Madison has leveraged 285 rooftop solar installations totaling nearly 1,700 kilowatts. 2022 was the program's most productive year ever. Moving on to another Renew program. The Solar for Good program, which is funded by Couleecap Solar Foundation, had another busy year in 2022. Since its inception in 2017, Solar for Good has extended grants to 161 Wisconsin-based nonprofit entities, representing 7.6 megawatts of solar capacity. The Couleecap Solar Foundation rolled out a new product in 2022. It's really kind of cool. It's a solar canopy using bifacial panel technology. This freestanding design can be applied for multiple uses, such as a pergola, a pavilion, a parking lot shelter, or a carport/vehicle parking charging station. We will close out this section with views of a few installations serving Wisconsin's signature industries, such as agriculture. ABS Global, ABS stands for American Breeders Service, now hosts nearly 1 megawatt of ground mount solar at 2 facilities, including the one pictured here in Decorah. Another signature Wisconsin industry. Waunakee-based Octopi Brewery became the first brewery in Wisconsin to be powered by a combined solar and storage project. Like ABS Global, Octopi also received a USDA REAP grant to offset a portion of the upfront investment. Finally, Monona Grove High School is now home to the largest solar array serving a K-12 public school. Westfall and Company designed and installed the 674 kilowatt array. And for more about this and other school projects, check out the Clean Energy for Schools session. All right. Transitioning to electric vehicles, Renew works to support electric vehicle adoption through partnerships with philanthropic endeavors and also through policy advocacy. Renew Wisconsin's EVs for Good grant program reduces the upfront cost of purchasing electric vehicles and EV charging infrastructure for nonprofits in Wisconsin. This grant is possible thanks to a generous donation from Carol and Andy Phelps. Regarding the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which we know as NEVI, Wisconsin Department of Transportation is now awaiting federal guidance before issuing its request for proposals. soliciting bids for private sources. And there you see depicted their potential installation locations. This program will cover 80% of EV charging station installation costs. In the most recent legislative session, a bill was introduced to clarify that those entities who own or lease and operate EV charging stations are not considered a public utility under Wisconsin law. Though the bill did not clear the legislature last year, we remain hopeful that a consensus package will emerge that will remove this barrier to electric vehicle adoption. And you might want to check out On the Road to Zero Emissions. That session is set for this afternoon. And with that, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Keith Reopelle. Keith has devoted decades of service to environmental, climate, and renewable energy causes. His roles include policy analyst with the Wisconsin Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy, director of Dane County's Office of Energy and Climate Change, and senior policy director at Clean Wisconsin, where he worked for 32 years, which is a couple months longer than I've worked at Renew. So, please welcome Keith Reopelle.
Can you hear me all right? Great. Thanks very much, Michael, and I also want to thank Sam and Jody and Heather for giving me this opportunity. It's truly an honor to be here. And I also want to thank all of you for coming out on a cold morning to join us. It's great. And I should mention that, and there's a lot of folks in the back of the room there, and there's a lot of empty seats up here in the front. So please come on down and join us. So I'm here to moderate a session on the Inflation Reduction Act. You heard Michael say a little bit about it. $370 billion for clean energy and climate action, over 100 programs for clean energy, and a strong emphasis on equity and justice. This truly is really historic legislation. And by this point, you've all read that there's been independent analysis that says that we'll get a 40% reduction of our greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2030 as a result of this large investment. However, you know what they say about modeling. It's always wrong. And so we know that we're going to get a lot of greenhouse gas emission reductions, and we can also know that it's going to be either more than 40% or it's going to be less than 40%. And there's a lot of different factors that will influence whether it's less or more. But probably the biggest factor is how well we use those investments, how well we take advantage of what I now like to call IRA, the Investment Reduction Act. And so that's the objective of this session, this panel. We want to hopefully gain some insights and become a little more prepared to take advantage of what is truly a huge opportunity. So I see our three speakers have joined us, our three panelists. I'm going to give you a really quick introduction of each of them. Their bios are on the app. So starting out at the far end with Adam Schurle. Adam is a tax attorney with Foley & Lardner, one of the generous sponsors of this event. Adam works out of the Milwaukee office where he helps wind, solar, and biomass developers maximize their benefit from federal tax credits. And then we also have with us, and thank you so much for being with us, Adam. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
We also have Robin Lisowski. And Robin Lisowski is the Director of Service Solutions for Slipstream. Among other things, that means that she is Slipstream's lead on policy analysis and policy engagement. Great to have you here, Robin. Thanks so much. And then we also have Maria Redmond. Maria Redmond serves as the Director of the Wisconsin Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy, where she recently led the development of Wisconsin's first ever clean energy plan. And now she's busy implementing that clean energy plan. And it's great to have you here as well, Maria. Thank you so much. So the four of us got together and we talked a little bit about how the session could go. And we quickly came to agreement that with sessions like this, panel sessions, usually the most productive part is the Q&As afterwards. So we decided, because time is really short, to just devote the entire session to Q&A. And so we're going to get a lot of help from Sam, who is going to be crowdsourcing the questions from you all. And I understand through the app you can also prioritize which questions you like. And so we'll get the questions that have the most interest asked up here. And we want to, of course, give you a few minutes to come up with those questions. So we do have one question for each of our speakers, three more open-ended prepared questions. And so we're going to start with those. So starting with Adam.
Before you start, show us where the question app gizmo is, or I'll be looking for that instead of listening to that.
Great thought. Sam?
Show the whole room, not just me.
Oh.
I just asked the question for everybody else.
Maybe you can just describe it, Sam.
Can you all hear me? Okay, so if you go to the agenda, and then if you click on the morning plenary session, in the top left corner, right about here, there's a Q&A box, and you can just type your question in there.
All right. Thank you, Sam. So there are many, many tax credits in IRA. I think I counted in the guidebook 20 distinct different tax credits, which is amazing. Adam, you spent the last 10 years of your career helping businesses, families, developers maximize the benefit of federal tax credits. So based on your work, can you give us maybe one or two of the tax credits in IRA that you think hold maybe the most potential for clean energy development in Wisconsin and across the Midwest?
Yeah, thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here. First of all, thanks for having me. I think there are a lot of great things in the IRA, and a lot of really important new tax credits. I think there's a full list extension of investment tax credits and production tax credits for solar and wind and other renewable projects that'll go for at least the next 10 years. Those credits generally will be available. Other new credits and extensions that I think are really exciting are EV credit extensions, EV infrastructure extensions, standalone battery ITC eligibility, 30% tax credit for batteries that do not have to be associated with other renewable energy facilities. And then there's a hydrogen production tax credit, which is new as well. I think, so those credits it's great that we're extending those credits for new technologies, but I think potentially the most impactful thing is actually how to monetize and utilize those tax credits. So, a tax credit is a dollar for dollar offset against income tax. So a developer has to actually have income tax liability to be able to take advantage of the tax credit. So if you have a 30% credit for solar, for example, that can help to defray 30% of the cost of developing the system. But if you don't have tax liability, the credit doesn't help. So a lot of the work that we've done, and I've done the last 10 years, is working with developers and investors to form joint ventures, complex tax equity structures to get investment to help finance development of projects and allocate tax credits to investors who can actually use them. I think the really exciting thing and interesting thing about the IRA now is for the first time ever, you can now sell tax credits directly. So developers, starting in about a month, starting in mid-February, will be able to develop projects and sell tax credits. We need to see what the market's going to look like for the purchase of tax credits, but I think it's probably, particularly for smaller projects, going to be a more efficient way for developers to take advantage of the value of those credits without having to go through complex joint venture arrangements. And then the other piece that I think could radically change uptake on renewable energy projects is now, as in the 1603 grant program days, there's actually a direct pay option where tax-exempt entities like hospitals, schools, local governments can build solar projects, own those solar facilities, not just solar, but other renewable energy projects, and get a direct cash payment from the government for the amount of the credit that they otherwise would have been able to claim. So that could revolutionize the way tax-exempt local schools, tax-exempt hospitals, even states develop and own projects. Historically, that was far more complicated because tax-exempt entities can't utilize tax credits on their own, so to develop projects, had to set up very complicated financing structures where the tax-exempt actually couldn't own the facilities and instead had to enter into power purchase agreements to buy the electricity, and then separate investors owned the facilities and took advantage of the tax credits. So I think those are the two most exciting things that really can change the way these projects are financed and developed.
Great. Thank you, Adam. Next question is for Robin. Slipstream, as I'm sure most folks in the audience know, designs, develops, and implements clean energy programs across the Midwest, other parts of the country, tons of experience in that area. So from your point of view, and specifically Slipstream has a strong emphasis on equity and justice, and develops programs with that in mind. So from your standpoint, Robin, which of the programmatic funding streams in IRA do you think might hold the most potential for helping clean energy development in communities of color and low-income communities in Wisconsin?
Great. It's great to see so many of my favorite people all in the same room, I'm realizing, sitting up here. I'd say first that it's particularly exciting in this moment that thinking about environmental justice is so much more mainstream and in the way that we're talking about clean energy. So having said that, I think the core answer to that question is really that it's what a person or a community who is overburdened or historically marginalized, experiencing environmental or climate injustice says, right? It's what those people say it is. Thinking about that, and there's a lot in, as Adam mentioned already, there's a lot in the IRA to make good of for clean energy. But I think the environmental justice and climate block grants really stand out for a few reasons. They're particularly directed to environmental justice communities on top of the Justice 40 commitment that's layered over all of these, most of the programs that we're talking about. It's a healthy amount of funding. It's $3 billion over the course of 3 years. The funds go directly to community as possible, to nonprofit organizations representing community, and there's even a small carve-out for very small nonprofits, I believe, of organizations of 5 or fewer staff, and to local governments and tribal governments and organizations. So the eligible parties to receive those purely grant funds are those who are closest to community and can represent them best. There's no cost share for these grants either, so the cost share in a lot of these opportunities is a hurdle to get over to be able to apply to begin with. So having no cost share makes it even more accessible.
Great. Thank you very much, Robin. And from Maria. Maria, your office coordinates program work and policy work across many state agencies. So what are you anticipating as some of the more exciting programmatic funding that's going to be coming through the state of Wisconsin from IRA?
So I would be remiss if I didn't also mention the Infrastructure Act, because we as a state are really diligently working on Bill and IRA. We're talking that they're our new favorite aunt and uncle with lots of money. So the infrastructure law, a lot of that money is coming to states and will also be competitive. And so that was announced November 21st, a year and a few months ago, and we are actively working on that. But then we get this blessing of IRA as well, and that was announced in August of last year. And I think there are a few programs that we're particularly interested in, the non-docketed EPA programs like the Climate Reduction Fund, which I'm super excited about, that states, local governments, non-governmental organizations can apply for planning and implementation grants. So you need to plan to know where you're going to go. The other part that I'm excited about is the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, the potential to stand up a green bank in Wisconsin, something that will be long-term, that could continue to finance projects and to continue to support and incentivize projects in the long run. The other thing I'm really excited about, the role of the Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy. We do, like you mentioned, work across multiple agencies. So we have the Connect with the Public Service Commission, our building codes and DSPS, safety and professional services, things that are happening with agriculture and DNR and natural working lands. We have a lot of infrastructure in place, and we have a lot of opportunities with our current programming to expedite the deployment of some of the competitive process or the competitive funding. A focus on energy, for example, is a great conduit for energy efficiency, and we've been talking about heat pump deployment and solar, and there's just so much there that we're looking at the current infrastructure and current programs that we have to make sure that we not only get the grants and the funding that's available out as quickly as possible, but to remember that the IRA funding and the IRA programs, a lot of that's going to be direct pay. So a lot of what we want to do is also get the information out to those eligible entities to make sure that they can take advantage and we can get as much of that funding to the state and to the Midwest as possible.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Maria. So at this point, hopefully you've had time to come up with some questions. Come on up, Sam. I know you've got some questions from the audience, and you do. You get to sit close to the speakers because you're going to direct the questions to them.
All right, our first question is, can any facets of the IRA be effectively leveraged to accelerate the retirement of coal-burning plants beyond accelerating deployment of renewable generation? So getting right into it right away.
Yeah, I think so. The incentive mechanisms that help to deploy renewables in IRA help transition, it will be a transition. So I don't think there's anything within IRA, at least I've looked in it, there's nothing that shuts down coal facilities or shuts down renewables, right? Or not shut down renewables. We want renewables. Shuts down fossil fuels. So I'm I don't think there's anything specific to that. But the incentivizing and supporting the deployment of renewables through IRA helps to have that transition happen more expeditiously.
There is a mechanism that additional guidance has just recently been released on through the Loan Program Office, that's Jiggershaw's office, that allows securitization, so you buy down the rate, making it financially more feasible to retire. That's, I think, that use of that section of the IRA is relatively emerging, is my understanding. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was on a call the other day where somebody said it's just the law that keeps on giving. You keep discovering things in it.
And I'll add that there are in the tax credit provisions, there are additional tax credits available for renewable energy projects that are located in areas with retired coal mines or decommissioned coal-fired electricity production facilities. And so there are sort of those direct incentives on the tax credit side focused on those particular areas and trying to move some renewable generation into those areas. So.
Okay, our next question is, as a solar installer, I know my field, but we work with homeowners who want to know how to electrify their home, install heat pumps, and take full advantage of IRA benefits. Where should we point homeowners to learn all the ways the IRA may benefit them? What organizations could help them?
Yeah. Everybody has that question. I think that navigation is profound. The need for that navigation is profound, and organizations are coming together. I know that some progressive local governments are populating their websites and their just communications and community engagement with information that helps consumers navigate that. We've got Focus on Energy in Wisconsin, who and representatives in the audience I see, who regularly and will continue to update information on their website and the communications channels that they have, and I imagine through the contractor trade ally networks that exist. Nonprofits, we have a really rich ecosystem of nonprofits in Wisconsin and in this area, in the Madison-Dane County area in particular, and a lot of us are in regular dialogue with regional and national nonprofits who are collecting this information, putting together tools. One that gets mentioned in almost every phone call I'm on is the calculator that Rewiring America has prepared. So you can kind of run through based on what the specific nature of your household and what installations you're imagining might look like financially. Because there's $8,000 for a heat pump, $4,000 for an electrical panel upgrade. I forget how much for the water heater. But you can run through scenarios in that Rewiring America calculator. So I think there's a very strong desire to have a one-stop shop of navigation to answer all those questions. I don't think anybody is that one-stop shop yet, but it'll be coming together, and local governments and environmental nonprofits working on this, I think, are some of the first places to check.
Yeah, I would add that.
And state government.
Yeah, state government. We're trying to organize around how the state can share information, how we, as new programs are being launched. But one place I would say is go to the source. White House cleanenergy.gov is actually the source of information that I've been going to. They have a really nice website that lays out, they show like a visual, I'm a visual learner, so there's an actual house with little dots you can scroll over, like if you want to learn about, what you can do. And then it's even better, you go down a little further, and it's what does IRA mean for me, if like the structure of your house as a single parent, or you're a construction worker and or if you're a nurse, or like the different levels of income and the impact that IRA would have on you as at different income levels, which I think is really helpful. So it's cleanenergy.gov, and you can sign up for updates directly. Like I said, directly from the source. There's a guideline document there, although it's 184 pages and there's a lot there. It doesn't give you it gives you the layout of what we're talking about here, the different programs, so you're familiar with them. But at least you can get updates on like when programs are announced, when the tax incentives and everything's in place. But I just found that website to be really helpful and straightforward. And it's updated consistently as well. So, and of course, as a state, we want to be proactive as well and provide the technical support to our stakeholders as much as we possibly can. So, certainly reach out to our office as well, and we'll get you connected. At the end of this, I do want to point out something. There's a bingo card on Generation 180 that I want to put on my I'll put on my profile. But there's a bingo card. I'd love to read it out loud for everybody because it's like a really good, they'll actually give you a prize if you fill it out. And it said the middle one is share with your friends, so I get to mark the middle one. But I would love to share that with you all at the end of this.
That's great. I think this question is mainly for you, Adam. How will the 30% direct pay for nonprofits be administered? How do we apply for those funds?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. So the IRS and Treasury are going to be releasing guidance on how to apply for those programs, how to apply for the direct payment. I think the way it's going to work is the IRS will release new forms, and the direct payment will happen after you would file your tax return for the applicable year. So if you have a 30%, you develop a solar project, let's say this year, and it would be eligible for the 30% credit, and it's in service this year, then in 2024, when you file your tax returns, or for a tax-exempt entity that doesn't file returns kind of along the same timeline as when they would have to if they did file returns in March or April of 2024, then you will make an application and fill out the form and submit it to the IRS, and then the cash payment will come from the government after that point in time. So that's, I think, one of the slightly unfortunate things about it is it's a great opportunity, but there's a little bit of a lag period between when you're going to actually have to pay for the equipment and build the project, and then it's kind of the following year that you get the cash payment from the government. That's how I think it'll work. That's how it generally should work, but we are awaiting guidance from the IRS.
You called it $1 million question, and Maria couldn't resist saying literally it's $1 million.
Yeah.
What are the workforce requirements for the planned legislation?
I feel like in some of the tax credits there are some apprenticeship, but I'm not an expert on that quite yet. So I'll go to the expert.
Yeah. So we do have guidance on the workforce requirements. At this point, the way just to take the solar investment tax credit as an example, in the construction and repair and alteration of any solar facility, starting, let's see, January 28th, if you haven't begun construction on the project before then to be eligible for the full 30% tax credit for solar or any other ITC eligible renewable project, you have to pay workers prevailing wage rates in the local community. Those rates are generally available on the Department of Labor website, and the IRS has released guidance that says if you can't find the right wage classification for a particular laborer, that there's an email address where you're actually supposed to email the Department of Labor to figure out what to pay them. So those, for people familiar with kind of federal government contracting, those rates are Davis-Bacon wages that are already applicable in federal contracts. So that's in the construction of the facility. And then in addition to the actual wage requirements, there are apprenticeship requirements. So a certain percentage of labor hours in the construction of any eligible facility have to be performed by qualified apprentices. So you have to go through an apprenticeship agency and find apprentices. You know, all of that is still being developed, and I understand that a lot of larger contractors are trying to figure out how to actually have their own apprenticeship programs so that they can satisfy those requirements. If you don't satisfy the prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements, then there's a major write-down in the amount of the credit. And this applies to the investment tax credit, production tax credit, carbon sequestration.
Affordable housing.
Yep. Then, so in the credit is 1/5 of the amount of what you would otherwise be eligible for. So for a solar project, you're looking at a 6% credit if you don't satisfy those requirements, and a 30% credit if you do. There is, yes. Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Good point. Under 1 megawatt AC. Yep. Then you don't have to satisfy those requirements.
I would add to that there is a stakeholder input process ongoing right now that includes 2 Infrastructure Act programs and one, the contractor training $200 million program from IRA that might be an opportunity to engage with in pursuit of achieving apprenticeship requirements or thinking about accomplishing prevailing wage requirements. So it's in the early stages. There isn't funding released for those yet, but the Department of Energy has commingled programs from the two different laws and is seeking public input currently.
I just want to mention also on the app you can vote for your questions too. So if there's a question that you particularly would like panelists to answer, definitely put in a vote for that question. The next one is, while there are many equity-oriented provisions in the IRA, there's no guarantee that these benefits will reach the most energy-burdened households in cities and rural areas. What steps can be taken to ensure that the EJ vision is achieved?
I think first and foremost, the programs are covered programs for the Justice 40 commitment, so it overrides a lot of this, and that requires, and rightly so, that the benefits, not just the funding, but the benefits get plowed into environmental justice communities, and by program, by agency, those benefits are being described so that we're increasingly having more lists of, what that criteria and the metrics for measuring, meeting them are. So I think that is a potent way to help ensure it. And for a lot of the local governments and nonprofits and state agencies seeking funding for these programs to be able to deliver them, I can just kind of testify that conversation about making those benefits, about realizing those benefits is richer than I've ever seen in my career.
And the competitive programs in both IIJA and IRA require a community benefits plan submittal. So you have to define when you're applying for the funding what the benefits are going to be, and the impact of those benefits on marginalized and communities that have seen more pollution, low-income communities of color. And I think, one of the things that we've been trying to do in the state is figure out how can we get the data that people need and those who are applying to support the communities, so that as a community you can see what those indicators and impacts, health, pollution, emissions, all of those things. So we're working on a tool internally to help, an environmental equity tool that folks can use so that you can have access to that data and be able to define that for your community, be able to, secure some more of those dollars with some data points.
Yeah, federally, the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool is also available. It went through beta testing, and it's pretty user-friendly. Argonne National Labs created, if I'm not mistaken, and that helps identify by criteria communities by census tract that are identified as overburdened in meeting the environmental justice or the Justice 40 criteria.
Another way that I think, and this isn't immediately available, but down the road a little bit, we may be able to ensure that those dollars are going to communities of color, families of color, and businesses led by people of color, is if some of the IRA funding is able to be fed into a program that both Maria and Robin are familiar with, a program in the Clean Energy Plan. It's called Equity First Program. You can check it out in the Governor's Clean Energy Plan. That program is designed specifically to funnel money to the community organizations that provide community services to communities of color and low-income families, and also in turn to the people, the families and businesses that those organizations serve. So Greater Urban League of Madison would be a good example. So the money would go to a group like that and the people they directly provide services to. again, this is in development. It's down the road a little bit, but it's another potential answer to that.
I have one more comment too, because you triggered something. So the governor created the Office of Environmental Justice, and we are currently hiring. So if there is a interest of anyone in this room, or you know of anyone, really the Office of Environmental Justice will have a director, and we'll also have the Midwest First Chief Resilience Officer to really focus on climate solutions and mitigating and adapting to climate change. But we need to hire somebody. And if you're interested, let me know, and I can get you directed to the governor's website, where you can. In the governor's hiring anyway. So if you're interested in working for state government, there's a workforce shortage. So everybody's feeling it. So please, let me know, and I'm happy to connect you. But that office really will focus on a lot of this work, and we'll have a dedicated staff within the state to be focusing on this.
Speaking of shortages, the workforce challenges are going to be substantial. What is happening in that realm, and how can folks with ideas get involved?
Yeah, if I can start, I think the governor is very, very supportive of expanding workforce in all sectors in the state, and recognizes the workforce challenges. And he recently announced with DWD Workforce Innovation Initiative to help multiple sectors to tackle getting people into jobs. Within the Clean Energy Plan itself, we focus on workforce and equitable economic development, and with that, a goal of additional 40,000 clean energy jobs by 2030. And the governor has committed to that. He mentioned it in his State of the State address on Tuesday, and also mentioned, kind of teased some of his budget, that he's going to propose a $10 million investment in clean energy jobs as part of his executive budget. So there's definitely support there. And, we are also going to be launching a workforce inventory for clean energy. I'm working on that right now. I was able to secure some funding to do a workforce inventory for the state and really define, there are a lot of organizations out there that provide information on clean energy and energy workforce, but I really wanted to hone in on, what does it mean for Wisconsin? How are we defining a clean energy job and conservation-related job? So we're going to be doing an inventory and building that out so that we can stand up some organization around workforce here in the state. So.
Yeah, I'd reiterate that we have a really rich ecosystem of nonprofits working on some of this stuff, so tap them, right? I mean, we've got MREA locally who trains solar installers. We've got Operation Fresh Start is reaching out to youth to engage in clean energy increasingly, and many, many more.
Adam, what are we looking at for the timing of the IRA? What can we tell customers to expect? Many are holding off on efficiency projects until they know the rebates are available.
Yeah, I think so. The IRS had some of the aspects of the IRA actually had deadlines for the IRS to meet, to issue guidance on how to take advantage of the various tax credits. And the IRS has already blown past those deadlines. So, unfortunately, we don't know for sure when guidance is going to be coming out on the various aspects of these tax credits. Although a lot of them became effective January 1st of this year, including a lot of the adders for investment tax credits and projects located in low-income communities or brownfield sites, for example. So the IRS has said early this year we're going to be into February pretty soon here, but I would expect probably in the next few weeks, because the IRS really knows that people developers and individual homeowners, everybody who wants to be able to take advantage of these credits that are currently available needs to have guidance on this. So it is a top priority, and it should be. I made a prediction that it would be the end of January. I'm going to stick with it, but I only have a couple days left.
Relative to neighboring states, Wisconsin has historically been anti-wind. Do you see that changing now due to the benefits offered by the IRA?
I think it's an all-of-the-above approach. I think that there are opportunities for wind siting here in the state, and we have to be looking at all the options. And now that there's incentives and support, I definitely think that wind is part of that portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be, and I think the other thing that is helpful now is that wind production tax credits historically have gone through these cycles where they were going to expire, and then everybody wondered what was going to happen. Do you develop projects hoping that they get extended, the tax credits get extended, or do you put the projects off and move into something else? Now we've got a 10-year window where I think everybody can be pretty comfortable for a while that these credits are going to be available, so that should help.
Yeah, speaking of that, can you all please summarize some of the key IRA benefits for contractors that will drive benefits for consumers? I'm thinking especially on the EV side of things. There's a lot there that I think people tend to forget about.
So on the EV side of things, so there are tax credits available for the purchase of electric vehicles. There are now tax credits that are going to be available for actually building EV charging stations. So I think that those are going to be helpful as far as, and what was the piece about asking about contractors taking advantage of these?
Please summarize some key IRA benefits for contractors that will drive benefits for consumers. There wasn't a specific EV mention, but I know that we haven't talked as much about those, so I just wanted to make sure those were thrown into the contractor base.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other piece of it is for consumers. So if you're looking at residential developers, for example, or energy efficiency improvements to homes, or tax credits for adding solar or wind, I think again it goes back to this idea that those credits now are going to be around for an extended period of time. So developers who are kind of on the consumer-facing side of things, can be more comfortable with knowing that the kind of financing for residential homeowners and consumers are going to be available by way of tax credits for a longer period of time.
Yeah, I'm particularly excited about the addition of energy storage and with the tax incentive for solar. So I think the energy storage can also be standalone, I believe, yes. 2023. So I think that's, like for 2022, I think it was just solar. And then, again, I'm not the expert. I was just reading up on it. I just put in solar this last year, so I'm excited to be able to take advantage of the credit that was available last year. But now there's storage available, so I could get the storage added onto my system and get a credit for that. But also thinking about energy efficiency projects, replacing furnaces. Wow, I need some more coffee. My bad. Replacing furnaces and air conditioning, buying an EV, air source heat pumps. There's a lot of individual credits that folks can take advantage of. And I think as a contractor, familiarizing yourself with these benefits and making sure that when you're working with your customers, to let them know about the tax credits. Also found that my tax preparer sends us this packet, like, you need to prepare for your taxes this year. And what's really interesting on the back, it asks, did you install any renewable, or like basically has this whole list of things that I can take advantage of. And there's a couple things on there that I wasn't familiar with. I'm like in this space. So that's another area where you could be kind of teaching consumers. We all have to put do our taxes, and having that group also familiar with it as well is helpful.
I'd add that outside of tax credits, other programs and funding streams, there's $200 million, which is a fairly modest amount in IRA for all states for efficiency and electrification training for contractors. So getting heat pumps, getting contractors trained up to install heat pumps, cold climate heat pumps in Wisconsin, can be aided by that. And I think it's a time to not forget the Infrastructure Act here, because there's a lot of workforce funding in there. But then back to IRA, several of the programs and their associated funding streams include training, contractor training, workforce training, and education in various ways as an eligible activity for that program. So I think it's important to not lose sight of what the eligible activities are, even if they're not a training program or a contractor program in the headline.
I'm glad you mentioned heat pumps. Heat pumps, the next question is, heat pumps work better in a tight, weatherized structure. Weatherization jobs can't be offshored. Does IRA fund weatherization retrofits in Wisconsin? And how will Wisconsin programs embrace weatherizations?
Yeah, there are portions of IRA that are specifically geared toward weatherization. I don't know the exact amounts, but I think there's certainly a whole home approach there. And then again, the training that you mentioned, is a part of that as well. So
I think the two rebate programs that get so much attention. I think RMA gave a talk this morning on the two, did a deep dive into them. But the homes program is, so there's homes in here. The HERE program is more of a widget or equipment-based low and moderate income program. The homes program is a more comprehensive approach to the home, and that includes the ability to small W weatherize, not referring to like the weatherization assistance program in that response.
And aren't those open right now for request, or did that close?
There is for those rebate programs and this $200 million of contract training, those three are getting lumped together in how they're treated by DOE. So that request for information is out right now. That's a stakeholder input process. I think I heard that RMI said this morning that rebates won't be in consumers' hand until August of 2024. So late 24. So they need to be, there's some program in a box work being done, and then a lot of those funds will go through the state energy offices. The state energy offices will adapt, if they use the program in a box approach, right, adapt them to how they want to run the programs. And then that's a lot of work to stand those programs up and then make them available to consumers ultimately. And there are some point-of-sale requirements, so there's contractor and mid-market engagement involved in those programs.
Okay, we have time, I think, for one more question, and this is a broad one, so it gives you some flexibility to speak to anything maybe you think that we've missed or that we should have covered but didn't. Question is IRA really a game changer for Wisconsin? In what ways?
It is a game changer for Wisconsin. It is, I mentioned it was a blessing at the beginning of this talk, because our goal is 100% carbon-free electricity consumed in the state by 2050, also looking at different sectors and emissions reductions here in the state. And we haven't been able to get state resources from the legislature that we had hoped to help accelerate some of our work and activities. My team right now, with the Clean Energy Plan, our state's first Clean Energy Plan, we have over 70 strategies in the state that basically IRA addresses all of them. Transportation, innovating in transportation, thinking about clean fuels, electric vehicles, energy efficiency, optimizing energy efficiency, modernizing buildings and industry, and accelerating clean energy technology deployment. IRA does all of that, and the infrastructure law as well. And so my team has been lining up all of the strategies with all of the programs that are within infrastructure law and IRA to see where there's alignment, so that we can look to a strategy and say, okay, workforce related, we can really dig into infrastructure law on that one, or these IRA opportunities with apprenticeship programs and training programs. That's just one example of like 200. And so organizing around it is what's important. And one of the values of the Clean Energy Plan is collective action. So the state's not going to do this all by ourselves. This is all of you in here, all of you in this room have a role to play in IRA and making sure that we can optimize and maximize the amount of tax incentives that are the people in the state and the businesses in the state that can take advantage of, and also showing how competitive Wisconsin is and why we should have those dollars shifted here, because we have so much going on and so much opportunity here in the state. And we do have a blueprint with the Clean Energy Plan and the work that our Public Service Commission is doing and all of our agencies are doing to really move things forward. So these resources federally are awesome. Really, like literally awesome. I'm not like there's just so much there. But then also we're in a really right time right now with the biennial budget coming out and a new legislative session to really get the state, our state activated and have our state also being supportive and continuing the support there too. So I just say that it is a game changer, and that we'll see a lot of action within the next year to 10 years. Within the 2030 to 2050 timeframe, we're going to see a lot happening.
Robin, Adam, do you want to add anything to that?
Agree. I'm trying to be funny about game changing, saying something like, but we can't throw interceptions like in that last Packers game or something, right? Like we have to win the win, and just like Maria said, we have to organize around ideation and partnership and draw those funds in where we need them. And we've got plans, we've got frameworks to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with both Robin and Maria. I think, this is, as a policy matter, it touches employment. It touches employment. It touches residential energy efficiency and utilizing clean energy. It'll impact investors. It'll impact developers. It'll impact tax-exempt entities, governments. I mean, there are focuses on low-income communities and development in areas that have, as I mentioned, traditionally used fossil fuels as electricity and generation. I think it really has the potential to be a game changer for Wisconsin because it touches everything and hopefully the world.
Great. I want to just leave you one parting thought about IRA. I often look to a neighbor directly, immediately to the west for ideas of how to do clean energy well and do clean energy right, get ahead. And when a couple years ago, when the Infrastructure Act was first passed, I was kind of following what Minnesota was doing. As a state, they had the state and businesses and nonprofit organizations and environmental justice organizations and developers all had gotten around a table within months, I think. In fact, maybe even before it passed, probably in anticipation. And we're collaborating on how to position Minnesota as best as possible to take advantage of what Maria mentioned, the fact that there are millions and billions of dollars of competitive grants out there to be had. And so I just want to urge you all, and that's, I guess in my mind, that's only going to happen if some of the larger businesses, some of the larger organizations, and Maria can chime in if she wants. Her office may be able to play a role as well. But I just urge you to take advantage of today, especially while you're all here together, to start having those conversations. Obviously, when it comes to those competitive grants, partners are critical. Key partnerships are absolutely critical. But it would be really great if Wisconsin could do something broader than that and have a broader conversation about how to position Wisconsin for some of those competitive dollars. And I have on my phone 1 minute left if you want to mention bingo.
Yes, bingo. So flip, if you haven't heard of it, it's Generation 180, and it's flip the script. So it's really thinking about how do we incorporate storytelling, and I think this transitions well to the next session, storytelling and comedy into, because humor helps, right? And so if you get a chance, and I'll put the link in somewhere on Hoover or whatever, but I want to read this because there's only a few spaces, but one, read up on why IRA is a big explicative deal for people and the planet. Learn why heat pumps make sense for your wallet and the planet. Pledge to make your next car purchase electric. Find out why pro chefs prefer cooking with induction instead of gas stoves. Encourage your local school board to apply for state and federal funding to switch to electric school buses. Get a solar estimate for your home. Take a test drive in an EV or give a friend a test drive in your EV and see how much you can save with this calculator, which links to the rewiring. So, and then the free spaces, share this bingo board with a friend. So I've shared it with you. I get my check mark, but I think, just being able to share the basic steps, word of mouth. Like I mentioned before, everybody has a role to play in this. And so get your bingo card, submit it to Flip the Script and Generation 180, and come talk to the Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy and the folks in this room, because we have a lot of work to do, and we can do it together. So
let's thank our panel of speakers for a great job.
Thank you so much, Keith, Maria, Robin, Adam, thank you so much. As Maria alluded to, we do have one more segment coming up, so please stay in your seats. We're going to have a break very shortly. So at this point, we're going to transition into my favorite part of the summit, which is the storytellers. Many of the sessions that we have today are very technically dense. A lot of graphs, a lot of X's and O's. This is the time where we actually get to see the real world impacts of these projects, really how these renewable energy projects are affecting real world folks. So without any hesitation, I'm going to move to our first storyteller, and that is Hetti Brown. Hetti? Hetti is the Executive Director of Couleecap Community Action Agency in Southwest Wisconsin. Together, she and her Couleecap team deliver more than 20 programs and oversee 50 federal, state, and private grants to address the causes and conditions of poverty. And her story today is titled Good Energy. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is a fast-paced part of the program. The slides are going to advance on their own, so here we go. Ready?
I'm ready. Okay. As you heard, I'm Hetti Brown, and I work with a great team at Couleecap Community Action Agency. We fight poverty, and in that work, we work to address energy poverty. At Couleecap, we help people pay their utility bills, replace their broken furnaces, and get heat when they don't have heat. We have been a weatherization service provider since the 1970s, and during that time, we have helped weatherize over 19,000 homes. But other agencies just like us are doing this work across the state and the country, helping low-wage and low-income households. This is important work. We feel good about it, and we're proud of it. Unfortunately, despite these efforts, energy poverty continues to grow in Wisconsin, not shrink. And while we've seen cleaner, cheaper energy become available for many, we also see that our clients continue to fall further and further behind. Households in our area who are low income pay 15 to 30% of their income on utility bills. Households that have been weatherized still have to apply year over year for energy assistance. And when we ask people living with low incomes, what are the highest barriers to you reaching the financial stability that you want, they continuously tell us that it is paying for energy bills that is holding them back. So we started to ask ourselves, are we just plugging holes in a broken dam, or are we really making a difference? We knew that solar was part of the solution, but solar isn't accessible for everyone. It's most enjoyed by higher level income households. In 2019, the median annual income for a solar adapter household was $113,000 a year. And we couldn't weatherize as part of our weatherization, or we couldn't install solar as part of our weatherization programs because solar isn't allowable in the plan. Tom Main, our Energy Services Director, also sitting right up here in one of the front tables, had been talking about ways of leveraging the skills and resources and knowledge of the weatherization network to advance community solar solutions and integrate solar and other energy conservation technologies in the weatherization plan for years. We decided to take those ideas further. We hosted interviews and focus groups with households who relied on energy assistance. They told us that they wanted to participate in solar programs, but cost was always a barrier. They told us that they would prefer to get their energy from local sources and that energy conservation was really important to them, and they actually challenged us to do more to educate younger generations on that topic. We partnered with our innovation partners at Ethos Green Power Cooperative. We wrote and advanced funding proposals to our partners at the Wisconsin Division of Energy, Housing, and Community Resources, Focus on Energy, and Renew Wisconsin. They listened. And in the end, we launched a pilot initiative to install solar panels and heat pumps on multi-unit apartment buildings that are owned by nonprofit organizations. See, housing authority agencies, community action agencies, and other nonprofit entities own these buildings all over the state, and they house some of our most economically vulnerable residents. There are also buildings that can qualify to be weatherized or are already weatherized, and they're perfect for solar installation. With this model, we can literally address energy poverty for thousands of Wisconsinites while improving energy equity in our state and advance the sustainable energy movement in a way that is not being done currently in Wisconsin. Our partners are taking notice, and the state of Wisconsin, in partnership with Focus on Energy, is currently looking at ways that they can build new programming based on our pilot. And we're hoping data from our pilot initiative can be used to inform future planning. This is Randy. Randy lives in one of these buildings. He works full-time for the University of Wisconsin. He also struggled to pay for his utility bills. Despite his unit being weatherized, he had to apply and rely on state energy assistance benefits each year to heat and cool his home. In November, we installed a heat pump on Randy's apartment and solar on Randy's apartment building. Within the first year, we estimate that Randy will save over $1,000 on his energy bills without having to rely on state energy assistance. So today, I leave you with a challenge. If you are a nonprofit entity, be bold in addressing the underlying systems that perpetuate energy poverty. It is not okay for us to keep plugging holes in a broken dam. If you are an electric utility, please find ways to say yes. And for all of us here at this conference, let's build equity into every project, every idea, every initiative. The low-income population wants to be a part of this movement, and they can offer valuable insight and valuable opportunities for us to advance the clean energy movement. You just have to invite them in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hetti. Our second storyteller today is Abdalla. Is the repairs specialist at Inga Team in Milwaukee. He directs a team of mechanics who have repaired and extended the life of hundreds of wind turbines. He is also a proud steward of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW, which represents the workers at Inga Team. Are you ready?
Go ahead. They know how to get a man out of his element, don't they?
Ready?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm Akinlana Abdalla. I am the repair specialist at Milwaukee for wind turbine generators. I lead a team of guys and one lady, and we get her done. Mine's not going to flow as good as hers did because I'm a little bit out of my element. But I grew up here in Milwaukee, not too far from here, about 83 miles the other way. I grew up during a time when middle-class families were strong and economically, prevalent. And it's a little bit different now, but we're trying to get back there. My family, they migrated from the South, places like Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas. They came here for economic opportunities, naturally, when industry was real big here in Milwaukee. And that kind of looks like some old family members right there. My first gig in union work was as a laborer for Local 113. I did deep tunnel mining. From there, I became a journeyman carpenter through Local 264, doing a 4-year apprenticeship program, and later I'm now a steward for IBEW. I did do a stint in college right after high school. Before I ended up in 113, I had a short tenure there working with companies like Super X Michaels, who was running for governor, as we know. My family has always had union pride, and I'm always be maintaining the tradition of union pride. I have an affinity for the outdoors. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I love to fish and hunt. And that's part of my upbringing from my uncles and stuff like that, that southern upbringing. And I want to pass that on to my children, and that's why I'm glad I do what I do today, to help preserve the environment with my job. Wind turbines, it was just a nice discussion. I heard something like a 10-year window. That's going to be good for wind turbine generators. So anybody looking to join in this industry, please come to Ingeteam. Garen is in the back, our HR manager. I love him. He's a mentor of mine. But this is what we do, and this is my home. This is where we get her done. And I wanted to do something after I got out of college. I did do a stint in management. I have a degree in general management. But I wanted to do something that aligned with my social and environmental responsibility. And so Ingeteam, with their final product, aligns with that. Our motto with our union and our organization is that we foster unity. We push for our goals to maintaining our organization's environmental responsibility plan in what we do. This is a beautiful summit. It's not something I'm used to, but I love it. That's what I represent all day, every day. We got an ice fishing event coming up on February 4th for this too. So, I am a proud member of IBEW. The next slide will be of, I think, my mentor, one of my other mentors. No, I'll take that back. It's our code of excellence. This is what we stand by when we produce our final product. My team, the serial production team at Ingeteam, we're really proud of not only does this help produce the final product for our customer, but this helps to build character amongst all of the workers in our plant. That's my mentor, my other mentor, because Garen is also a mentor of mine. They get me prepped for situations like this that I'm not used to. Real good friend of mine. I call him my brother from another mother. Don't we look at, see the resemblance? And so, but yeah, that's Mike Brunett. He's the BA at the Hall. This is what it looks like when you network. Jody, Sam, I've dialogued with them on a couple of different occasions with the help of our HR manager, Garen, helping the network. When we network and we push, we can produce products, we can increase industry and still maintain our environmental responsibility. I am a proud steward. I get to bring people from different walks of life together and to unite around not only my union, but our organizational goals. And using the code of conduct and, being proud of what we produce. I sleep well at night knowing that I help to produce green energy. That's one of the final products, of beauty right there. That's a NAR. Okay, I can't go into all the specific details because this is, I don't want to get too technical with you, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's one of our final products. that goes up about 300 feet in the air. And she does what she does when we get done with her, you know. And that networking leads to something like this. That's the Secretary of Labor. You got Congresswoman Gwen Moore, Tammy Baldwin. You got the mayor. That's what happens when we network. Because if we keep pushing our green energy agenda, it gets to the ears of people who can codify the things that we need to do. And, you know, naturally, we were just talking about solar panels. Capitalism and green energy and environmental responsibility doesn't have to have an adversarial relationship. And this is a representation of that, you know, along with wind, you know, solar. You know, we have an opportunity to increase industry again so that we don't go back to looking like that. This area, and I have an affinity for Miller too, but this area is close to where Ingatine sits right now. Look how dilapidated that is. We have a responsibility to bring industry back, bring middle class back, and we can do that by powering it through green energy. And this is the future. This is an example of the future where we can build back our cities, build up the middle class, and do it in an environmentally responsible way so that I can continue to hunt and fish in these beautiful areas in Wisconsin that I love to be in. And that's me. I'm just a simple man, Leonard Skinner, baby. You know what I mean? Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, AK. Our third and final storyteller today is Allison Sweere. Allison is the operations manager for Revitalize Milwaukee, a nonprofit which provides free critical housing repairs for low-income homeowners. She has been with Revitalize Milwaukee for 2.5 years, where she works to develop new and existing programs that help create healthy and accessible housing, allowing homeowners to age in place safely. Are you ready, Allison?
I am.
Okay.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Sweere, and I am the operations manager at Revitalize Milwaukee. And it is my honor to be here to share some of the stories about how our work is helping low-income homeowners stay safe in their home and have access to some of these energy-efficient improvements we've been talking about this morning. So for those of you that don't know, Revitalize Milwaukee is a private nonprofit. We complete critical housing repairs for low-income homeowners in southeastern Wisconsin. And to date, we've been able to help over 7,000 individuals remain safe and independent within their own homes. So for the last 23 years, Revitalize Milwaukee has been the only provider of free critical housing repairs. Now, what does this have to do with Wisconsin's energy landscape? Well, to start, almost 75% of Milwaukee's housing was built before 1960, which means a lot of these houses were built with different standards and not much attention to any energy efficiency standard. Let me tell you about our average homeowner. Our average homeowner has owned their home for at least 26 years, and many of them are still paying a mortgage of nearly $600 a month. Their average income is about $1,900 a month, which is less than $23,000 a year. But these homeowners are incredibly resilient people. They find ways to stay up to date on their property taxes, pay their bills, still put food on the table, and somehow maintain their home to the best of their abilities. But sometimes as these houses get older, they become expensive to keep up with and hard to remain a safe environment to live in. And so we experience households that don't have access to basic necessities such as running water, safe electrical hookups, or even functioning kitchens, as you can see in the picture behind me. So you can imagine a lot of them don't even think there is opportunity that they financially can experience some of these energy efficient improvements. And so I just want to show a few pictures of the reality of these homeowners, oftentimes our neighbors, of how they're living. And these situations aren't that unique. We see over 400 households a year, and a lot of these situations we see on a weekly basis as we're going to visit these households. So yes, heating your house with your oven. We, all the time in the winter, run into homeowners who complain that their furnace can't keep up. So they resort to using the oven as a second source of heat, not thinking about the financial strain this can do, and just the safety issues that can cause. And a lot of them aren't thinking about that it's really probably not your furnace can't keep up, but it's the lack of proper insulation in these households. Lots of them don't even have any insulation, and they also have deteriorating doors and windows, such as the one in the picture, where you can imagine the amount of air leaking in and out of that. So it's not a surprise that we have homeowners come to us that have energy bills upwards of $300 to $400 a month that they're paying. And keep in mind, these homeowners are making less than $2,000 a month, so that can be a huge financial burden. So you can start to see why many of these households don't even think they financially have that opportunity to receive energy efficient upgrades. Now, over the last 23 years, Revitalize has been able to complete some minor home repairs, such as installing new doors, new windows, weather stripping, insulating pipes, some water-saving faucets, solar lighting, minor things that can move these households in the right direction. But we have been incredibly fortunate over the last year to form a partnership through the Public Service Commission, as well as work with an incredibly talented team at Green Homeowners United to expand the weatherization services we're doing for these households. Through this partnership, we are helping up to 50 households for free receive these weatherization services, which include some energy assessments, air sealing throughout the house, properly insulating their attics, their basements, installing high-efficiency furnace systems, as well as the heat pump units. And through the amazing work that is happening by the Green Homeowners United team, we've been able to help reduce air leakage in these households by 25%. In many of these households, we're doubling or tripling the amount of insulation that was previously there. And there's tons of reports from our homeowners that they finally feel comfortable in their home. The temperature feels good. And so this is huge for our homeowners. As you've heard many people speak about today, so many of them felt hopeless or left behind, or like they're never going to have the opportunity for these types of improvements within their own home. The homes they've raised their family in, they're building generational wealth with. And so it's really rewarding to be able to give them this opportunity through these partnerships. And not only does this work help to reduce their energy bills, create a more comfortable home, and help the environment, but the long-term effects, as you can see some on the board, include growing equity in the BIPOC community, decreasing health disparities, and stabilizing entire neighborhoods. And so we really hope that through the stories you hear today, and you get inspired to help invest into the neighborhoods in these low-income households and not leave them behind as we continue to shift towards a more environmentally friendly living environments and ways of life. Because really, the residents in any community are the foundation. There's no successful economies, no successful cities if the people who make up the community aren't safe in their homes, aren't healthy in their homes. So we really hope that this inspires a few people to continue to invest into these households. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you to the rest of our speakers as well. Lovely stories. We love to hear them so much. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. At this point, we have a break, so please feel free to go out, grab some refreshments, and the breakout sessions will be starting on the other side of the building in about 15 minutes.